and the N-word are going to collapse. This has been Mad Money with the moral minority, and I want you to dump your N-word stocks because it is going to plummet. So sell. It's
Get out of the N-word as fast as you can.
Get out of the N-word. Short the N-word if you can. Speaking of journalism,
short the N-word.
Short the N-word, exactly. Speaking of the media finding threats, Snopes is apparently declaring war on the Babylon. The Babylon Bee is a Christian satirical news website, which is way better than it sounds. The Onion for conservatives, again, way better than it sounds. Cannot put into words how, if you were to describe the concept behind Babylon Bee, it sounds like the cringiest thing imaginable, but it actually is. It's actually funny and enjoyable. And so the Babylon Bee has been continually fact-checked by Snopes. Like, a lot of times, if you share Babylon Bee articles, it'll be like Facebook will, because it cares about us. Facebook automatically will put a bar underneath the post, like, fact check, is this true? And if Facebook is even fact checking it, that means that they're saying it's not. And at first, this sounds kind of funny, right? That Snopes is like fixated on the satirical news website, even though they call themselves a satirical news site. Like, they never claim to be real. But it actually is a bit more pernicious than that, because the fact that Facebook tags them as fake means that, again, because Facebook cares about your welfare, that Facebook will automatically take measures not only to suppress, the Babylon Bee's articles that they share, but also any account that overly shares the Babylon Bee, which is likely to be conservatives, anybody on the right. There's almost not much to say about just to point that out. But it does kind of show, again, how conservatives are just kind of stupid and that they can't quite comprehend the forces arrayed against them. Where they're like, man, Snopes is so dumb. Don't they realize how silly they look by constantly correcting us and acting as if we're fake news? Yeah, they're trying to censor you, you idiot.
It's like a soft censor.
And they would never act like this in any other context. Could you imagine if you were at work, if your boss kept giving you tasks that you kept failing, and every time you failed at them, like, he would then write you up? And you're like, man, I bet my boss sure feels dumb giving me all these tasks, which he knows I'm going to screw up. Also, these write-ups are annoying. He's trying to fire you, you idiot.
Yeah.
Like, that's a paper trail.
Yeah.
But again, conservatives really can't get it. They just can't. Like, man, these guys are so...
Because they think they're playing a game with liberals. They think it's like, we're playing this game, right? Where, like, we try to get people to like us and agree with us, and you try to prove us wrong, and we go back and forth, and then every 4 years we have a big Super Bowl, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. It's not a game. You're playing a game against someone who's fighting a war against you. So you have your tennis racket, and they have a machine gun, and then they shoot a hole in your tennis racket, and you go, gosh, they look silly. They think they don't even know how the rules work. They just shot a hole in my tennis racket. They're trying to kill you. They missed. And you think that this is an innocent mistake. Boy, their face is going to be red when they realize that what they think is a tennis racket is actually a machine gun pointed directly at me. That's odd. Why are they pointing it at me? And that's the last thing you think before they kill you. And again, we know that because every country where these people have taken control and they've cracked down with absolute power, what happens to those people? They line them up in pits and they shoot them. And then they sing songs about it and they laugh about it. Next story.
Yeah. Speaking of Clown World, let's get back to the main story of the month, Jeffrey Epstein. In a move that shocked absolutely no one who gave a shit, was reported dead in his cell of apparent suicide. I expected nothing. I'm still disappointed. I mean, when it first happened, I was kind of amped up angry, sort of saying, like, everybody knew this was going to happen. If at this point, and I kind of fell for the very thing I complained about just now, where I was like, if you think that Epstein killed himself, then you're dumb. You're not blue-pilled, and you're not a shill, and you're not this or that. I mean, you're just dumb.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who knows anything about this who doesn't think that he was murdered.
But again, I was falling into the trap where it's like, I bet you'll feel silly when we show that Epstein actually was murdered. It's like, no, you won't.
Rasmussen Reports did a poll 42% believe that he was murdered to prevent him from testifying against powerful people with whom he associated. 29% believe that he actually committed suicide in jail, and 29% were undecided, which means basically 2/3 of the people who they polled don't buy the story that he killed himself. 1/3 almost of people believe that.
It's funny too. I remember reading a poll that it's like 2% of Americans approve of the way Congress is doing its job, and there's always that joke that it's friends and family.
Yeah.
So apparently 30% of Americans believe that Epstein killed himself. So that just shows how wide the criminal network around him was.
Yeah. We have a leaked report that the New York Times posted about of course, the narrative is the jail is so short-staffed, the doors are just open and the cameras are off and nobody knows what's going on in there.
Yeah, the cameras
that's how fucking jails work.
Yeah, listen. He had allegedly committed suicide like a week or he was taken off of suicide watch after 5 days, which would never be
at the request of his lawyer.
At the request of his lawyer, apparently.
To the cell with the guy that the ex-cop that killed that was a murderer, the guy involved in the drug trade. And then that guy was taken out of the cell room, and now he's alone.
He was put alone in a cell. The cameras failed at the time. And the guards forgot to patrol because they were tired.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, the guards were so tired. When it was time for the guard rotation, one of the guards was replaced. Yeah, he was replaced by a guard he had never seen before. Dan, please read.
I was the guard on duty. When my shift ended, a new guard came. I'd never seen him before. I said, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Steve." I said, "Steve what?" "Jail." I was tired and that seemed legit, so I left. Said a staff member, speaking on condition of anonymity. That's in the paper of record.
Yes, the paper of record is telling us this is the thing that happened.
That a man named, identifying himself only as Steve Jail, wandered into this secure facility at the precise moment that the cameras were off, took over for the guard on duty, and sat there for the next few hours until the next guard's shift, during which time Jeffrey Epstein wrapped some paper sheets around his neck and jumped headfirst off the top bunk of his bed.
Keeping in mind that Jeff Epstein is over 6 feet tall, and a bunk bed can't be taller, I would guess, than, 5 feet off the ground?
And this caused him to die.
To shatter his neck bones.
Yes. The next day, his pedophile island was raided by the FBI.
Evidence was lost.
Or 2 days later. It was not until after he was confirmed dead that then the FBI secretly raided his compound, and I'm sure we'll find out everything that they discovered. And did you hear about his Ghislaine Maxwell, his confidant, his close gal pal, as the Daily Beast calls her, was spotted. She's the one who's considered to be the woman that got him the women. Like, she procured women for him. Her dad was an old spook.
Presumably she looked through the binders that Mitt Romney kept.
She was spotted at an In-N-Out Burger reading the book of Honor, The Secret Lives and Deaths of CIA Operatives. She's just there at the In-N-Out Burger reading a book about how CIA operatives died a couple days after Jeffrey Epstein died. Do you think she's looking for loopholes or something?
I don't know.
Like she's like someone watching a murder mystery in preparation for killing their wife, and they think, I'll figure out what they got wrong. She's reading about how all these CIA assets died, and she's going, what were their mistakes? How can I avoid that?
Yeah, and that's actually that's a thing also just about, as we laugh at the ridiculousness of this obvious assassination attempt, is the fact that,
Attempt? He's dead.
That is how it should look. In the sense of, we're like, oh man, look at this incompetence. Like, if we just think about the fact that it was a secure facility where nobody else had ever killed in decades, if you were the kind of person who reads about assassination and spying operations, it's not like the movies where spies are like superhuman, or it is a lot more Pink Panther than James Bond. It is just just talking your way in to the location and just killing him. If Archduke Franz Ferdinand, when he was killed outside of a sandwich shop because the grenade under his car failed to explode in time. The assassins gave up. And then one of them was just eating lunch, and then the Ferdinand drove by and his car broke down. He was like, "Oh, okay," and then shot him. I mean, sometimes it's just like that.
So we already predicted that this would happen. Again,
Everybody predicted that this would happen.
Yeah, I know, right?
When I woke up that morning and I just saw in the news that Jeff Epstein killed himself, I was just like, "Oh, why today?"
Yeah.
My thought was like, "Oh, what made today special? What was something happened today?" It happened. It's like when the weather says there's a 70% chance of rain, and then it rains, but it happens while you're walking outside. You're only briefly surprised, "Oh, but I guess if not now, when?"
Ted Rall at the UN's Review posted an article called "As Long as Enemies of the State Keep Dying Before Trial, No One Should Trust the State."
Yeah.
And he points out that, this isn't, you don't need to be Columbo or something to see that this is fishy. And he points out that how careless that they are with this. And he says, another man vanishes and the few questions asked are left unanswered intentionally. And he points out this is what happened with Gaddafi, who signed a deal with the U.S. to rid Libya of nuclear program, only to be blown up by one of Obama's assassin drones, lest he say too much about his relationship with the Bush administration. He said, so it was with Chris Dorner, the police officer who went on a shooting spree after he was fired by the LAPD, apparently in retaliation for reporting a fellow cop's excessive force against a mentally ill suspect. Before being hunted down and killed in a cabin, police set ablaze with pyrotechnic tear gas canisters. And he says, as it was with so many other people, whether it was the Nazi war criminals who escaped, everything from the Nazi war criminals who escaped judgment at Nuremberg to Sandra Bland or Lee Harvey Oswald. The list goes on of just people who one day they just died because it was convenient for people who had power that they died, and how lucky they always are. And nobody cares, and some weird people ask questions, and it just, the wheels on the bus go round and round. But remember, again, preaching to the choir, because our audience already thinks that, their defense is that the reason the most high-profile guy in the country, most high-profile prisoner in the country, was able to kill himself in a secure facility surrounded by armed guards.
Because the prison was underfunded and understaffed.
Is because their defense is, well, we're incompetent, we are underfunded, understaffed, our cameras didn't work, we weren't paying attention, our guards were asleep, and we failed on every single aspect. That's their defense.
So give us more money, please.
Yeah.
Never let a catastrophe go to waste.
If you don't believe Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, then you believe that the United States government is criminally incompetent at every level. So what's the reason that you're not an anarchist yet? Because either you believed that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered and either purposely by the government, or the government allowed him to be murdered, or allowed him to kill himself, or they failed to stop it. This is one of those cases where there's no way where you can salvage, yes, our wise and benevolent overlords should be in charge of anything.
One more thing about the Epstein thing was when he killed himself, Clinton body count was trending on Twitter, and Twitter then manually made that stop trending, and instead Trump body count started trending despite having maybe 1/5 of the tweets. It got to the point where at first I thought, oh, it's trending again. But then I realized what was happening was that the people who were doing Clinton body count just started spelling it slightly differently just to make it trend again. And then again, each time misspellings would suddenly stop trending. When I pointed this out, I had people who I know in real life telling me that I shouldn't speculate on algorithms that I don't understand.
Oh, well, yeah, they said, well, their official reason was it's not based on number of tweets, it's based on the velocity. So there were more Clinton tweets, but the Trump tweets were going faster, whatever that means.
Despite all being basically from California, if you look at the heat.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how mentioning the Clinton body count, all the suspicious deaths surrounding the Clintons, that's not just a conspiracy theory, which is like, oh, tut-tut, that's silly. It's like, that's dangerous. That's basically racism. It's terrible. You shouldn't do that. You're a bad person. Hey, Trump body count. That's fun. No problem there.
Yep.
Instantly, conspiracy theories aren't racist anymore. Now they're just like, oh, that's whatever. Yeah, Trump body count. That's silly, but it's harmless. Speaking of body counts.
Speaking of body
Speaking
counts.
of the Clinton body count. Wait, when was
Oh, yeah. Speaking of